The wind screamed across the frozen expanse of Virelia, a desolate ice-covered planet on the edge of charted space. Snow and frost danced like ghosts in a gale, sweeping over the jagged plains of ancient glaciers and crumbling radar towers half buried in ice. Jack Rowan moved slowly against the storm, each step crunching under the weight of decades and snow. He was wrapped in a thick, patched coat of synthetic fur and thermal mesh, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. A long-barreled rifle hung across his back, and every motion was deliberate. At 65, he was still lean, his eyes sharp as Arctic steel. A former Marine, now a ghost among ghosts, Jack had chosen solitude in Virelia's southern pole not to find peace, but to escape the war that never left his mind. The planet was silence incarnate. No cities. No people. No war. Until today. The noise came faintly through the howl of the wind, irregular, metallic. At first, Jack thought it was one of the old seismic monitors glitching again. But there was a rhythm to it. He followed the sound, veering off his usual patrol route. Past the ridge, in a shallow ice basin, he saw it, a flickering blue pulse, dim beneath a layer of translucent ice. As he approached, he recognized the outlines of a humanoid figure. Small. Slumped. Encased in a jagged shell of frozen water. Jack dropped to one knee, cleared the snow, and pressed his gloved hand to the ice. A hand twitched back. Alive. He didn't ask questions. The ice was thinning in patches, cracks spidered around the figure. Pulling out a portable plasma cutter, Jack began slicing through the shell. The figure was a woman, wearing a partially damaged suit that shimmered with alien tech. The surface of the suit pulsed weakly, as though running on backup energy. When Jack finally pulled her free, she was unconscious, her breathing shallow. Her skin was pale lavender with a faint sheen, and her face, though clearly not human, was eerily beautiful. Her most striking feature, though, were her eyes. Even shut, they glowed faintly beneath the lids, an ethereal purple-silver. He hoisted her up, noting the weight lighter than he expected. A low-frequency beacon blinked from the gauntlet on her arm. He turned it off and slung her across his shoulder. "What the hell are you doing out here, girl?" he muttered, more to himself than to her. His base wasn't far, just 2 kilometers south, built into the side of a glacier. The wind clawed at them all the way back. By the time he got inside and sealed the doors, his muscles ached and her body temperature had plummeted. Inside, the heat lamps hummed to life. Jack laid her on a med table and cut away the cracked parts of her suit. The injury was bad, a deep gash in her side, seared around the edges. Plasma burn. He worked in silence, cleaning and sealing the wound. The equipment was old, but functional. He didn't know her physiology, but the basics were similar enough to humans. As he bandaged her ribs, she stirred. A sharp breath. Her hand clamped around his wrist with surprising strength. Jack froze. Her eyes snapped open, twin orbs of glowing violet and silver. Fear flared in them. Her lips moved rapidly, forming words in a language he didn't understand. "Hey." Jack raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "You're safe. I'm not here to hurt you." She blinked, disoriented, then winced, and pressed a hand to her side. Jack handed her a water capsule. She took it without breaking eye contact. "Name's Jack," he said. "This is my place. You were dying out there." She looked around, still on edge. Then she said, softly, with an accent that twisted each syllable, "Ceyla." "Ceyla," Jack repeated. "You speak English?" She nodded faintly. "Translator, Chip." "Damaged." You're lucky I found you. Another hour out there, and you'd have been a popsicle. Ceyla looked at her damaged armor, the half-melted gauntlet, then back to Jack. Her voice trembled, barely above a whisper. They're coming. Jack narrowed his eyes. Who? Hunters. They followed me from orbit. They won't stop. Not until I'm dead. Jack exhaled slowly. So much for solitude. He stood, walked to a control panel, and activated the outer perimeter alert. Then he looked back at her alien, fragile, dangerous. Well, he said, picking up his rifle, you might have brought hell to my doorstep, Ceyla. But I've seen hell before. Outside, the wind howled louder. And somewhere beyond the white horizon, something else was listening. The night deepened over Virelia, but there was no real darkness. The snowfields glowed faintly under the twin moons, and the wind carved eerie songs through the canyons of ice. Inside Jack's outpost, the alert lights blinked softly, a quiet warning that hell had found its way to his doorstep. Ceyla stood by the narrow window, wrapped in a thermal cloak. Her breath steamed on the glass as she stared out into the swirling white. Jack finished assembling his rifle, his fingers moving with mechanical precision. They'll be close, she said. Her voice had steadied since their first encounter. The translator chip had synced better overnight. Their ships make no sound. Designed for stealth in thin atmospheres. Jack grunted. Figures. They don't always travel alone, she added. They use bio-beasts. Engineered trackers. I've seen them. Like wolves, but their eyes glow. Bright blue. Jack's grip on the rifle tightened. Great. Wolves with headlamps. She looked over her shoulder. They call them frost howlers. You won't hear them until they are on top of you. Jack didn't reply. He walked to a side wall and slid open a hidden panel, revealing a rough map of the surrounding terrain. If we move now, we can reach the research station in the north sector, he said. It's been offline for years, but it still has deeper shielding. Ceyla hesitated. You're helping me? Jack didn't look at her. I've buried too many good people to let one more die because I stayed out of it. She nodded, quiet understanding passing between them. Moments later, they stepped out into the cold, Jack leading the way. The snow swallowed their tracks almost immediately. They traveled in silence for an hour, weaving between jagged ice formations and frozen ridges. Then Ceyla stopped. Her eyes glowed slightly as she turned to scan the horizon. They are here. Jack swung around, rifle raised. The world was silent. Then the snow erupted. 3 frost howlers burst from a nearby slope, massive creatures with fur like shattered crystal and jaws wide with rows of translucent fangs. Their eyes blazed electric blue. Jack fired. The first shot hit one in the shoulder. It stumbled but didn't fall. Ceyla activated a small disc from her belt, tossing it high. It emitted a pulse, causing the air to shimmer. The creatures howled, momentarily disoriented. Run, she shouted. They bolted downhill toward a frozen lake, the beasts in pursuit. Jack paused only long enough to drop a thermal mine on the path. The explosion sent shards of ice skyward, knocking one of the howlers into a crevasse. The others leapt across. Near the lake's edge, Ceyla shouted something in her native tongue. The remaining howlers hesitated. They are sensitive to resonance, she said. I can disrupt their navigation if I reach the center of the lake. Jack looked out. That ice won't hold. We don't need it to. Ceyla sprinted across the slick surface, her boots humming softly with every step. Jack followed, slower, more careful. The howlers gave chase. Ceyla reached the center and knelt, placing a circular emitter on the ground. It hummed with rising intensity. The ice cracked. Now, she yelled. Jack turned and fired at the surface behind them. The mine he'd planted under his coat exploded, fracturing the lake. The ice shattered beneath the howlers, plunging them into the frigid abyss. Silence returned. Steam curled from Jack's weapon. He looked over at Ceyla, who stood with her cloak whipping in the wind, her hair damp with snow. "Nice trick," he said. "I had help." They crossed the remaining distance to the research station. The old structure groaned as the door opened, long abandoned but still intact. Inside, frost clung to every wall. Jack found the generator controls and began warming the core. Ceyla sat on a bench, removing her gloves. Her fingers were trembling. "You okay?" Jack asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "I wasn't always running. I used to fight. I was part of the Royal Guard on my home world. We protected the source, the power beneath our oceans. But they betrayed us. They turned it into a weapon. And you took a piece of it." Her eyes met his. "The activation code. I memorized it. Hid it inside a biochip grafted to my spine. That's why they want me." Jack sat across from her. "So if they get it, they'll wake something we won't be able to stop." Jack looked at her for a long moment, then leaned back. "Then I guess we don't let them." Outside, the storm raged again. But now, they were no longer just surviving. They were preparing for war. The storm overtook them by midday. Heavy winds barreled down from the ridges, driving snow sideways in blinding sheets. The path toward the next outpost was gone, swallowed by ice and fury. Jack and Ceyla pressed forward until they found shelter, a narrow fissure in the ice wall that opened into a deep cavern. Inside, the temperature dropped sharply, but they were out of the wind. Jack activated his portable lantern. The light revealed a world of crystal and silence. The walls glistened with ice formations, but what caught their breath were the crystal's giant, angular structures embedded in the cavern, shimmering with faint, multicolored light. They pulsed slowly, as if breathing with the planet itself. Ceyla approached one and brushed her fingers along its edge. A ripple of pale violet light followed her touch. Jack watched, his breath rising in quiet awe. "They grow in places of deep resonance," she said. "The old ones believed they were the voices of the world, crystallized." Jack gave a soft grunt. "Your people sure had a way with metaphors." She smiled faintly. They unpacked the heating coils and rolled out thermal blankets. Jack checked his rifle again before lying back on the cold stone, arms crossed, staring up at the glowing ceiling. Ceyla lay nearby, curled in her cloak, her eyes reflecting the crystal light. The silence pressed around them. Hours passed. The storm raged outside, howling against the mouth of the cave. Jack stirred suddenly. A sharp breath escaped him. His brow furrowed, hands clenched. He muttered under his breath, caught in some nightmare. Then he gasped. Ceyla was beside him instantly. "Jack," she said softly. "Wake up." He thrashed, eyes still shut, breath ragged. She reached out and placed her hand on his chest, over his heart. His eyes flew open. He looked at her, disoriented. The light from the crystals bathed them in a pale rainbow. "It's okay," she whispered. He stared at her for a moment longer, then slowly relaxed. He turned his head away. "Sorry. I thought I left those behind. You don't leave things like that, Ceyla said. You carry them. Until someone helps you set them down. Jack didn't answer right away. My unit, he finally said. 6 of us. Ambushed during extraction. I was the only one who made it out. Buried the rest under an avalanche. I can still hear their voices sometimes. Ceyla listened, her fingers still resting lightly on his chest. Her glowing eyes searched his face, but not in judgment, only recognition. My family died during the orbital siege, she said. My sisters, my bondfather. All gone. I joined the Royal Guard the next day. I never looked back. Jack turned to face her again. Why did you tell me that? Because I saw the way you looked at me when I first woke up, she replied. Like I was another ghost. But I'm not. Neither are you. They lay in silence, the space between them warm despite the freezing air. Then, slowly, Jack reached for her. His arm moved without thought, drawing her into an embrace. Ceyla didn't resist. Her head rested against his shoulder, her breathing calm. They didn't speak. The crystals above pulsed gently, as if recognizing something sacred unfolding. In that moment, they weren't fugitives or soldiers or strangers from different worlds. They were 2 people clinging to the only warmth left in a cold, indifferent galaxy. Not love. Not yet. But something just as powerful. Understanding. And the silence finally felt bearable. By the next morning, the wind had died, but the silence that followed was more unsettling than the storm. Jack stepped outside the cave and scanned the horizon. The sky had cleared, revealing the distant rings of Virelia glowing in the dawn light. But the air was warmer, unnaturally so. Cracks spidered along the glacier wall. The planet's thaw cycle had begun. We need to move, Jack said, stepping back into the cave. Ceyla was already packing. She nodded without question. They were only halfway across the ice shelf when the first tremor hit. A deep groan echoed beneath their feet, and then came the roar. The glacier behind them broke apart in a thunderous avalanche. They ran, but the ground fell away faster than they could move. Snow and ice swallowed the path, and a blast of white sent them tumbling. Jack lost sight of Ceyla as he hit the slope, sliding uncontrollably toward the edge of a frozen ravine. At the last moment, he dug his crampons into the ice and managed to stop. Ceyla, he shouted. No answer. He scanned frantically, and then movement. A shimmer of purple across the fractured ice. She was clinging to a ledge near the riverbed below, her armor torn, body limp. Jack scrambled down, ignoring the pain in his knee. He reached her just as she began to slip. He caught her arm and hauled her up with a grunt. They lay together for a moment, gasping. Then came the sound. Not wind. Not ice. Splashing. Jack looked up. The ice river had cracked open, water rushing beneath its thin shell. Something dark moved within it, large, sleek, fast. We have to swim, Jack said grimly. That thing's coming. Ceyla nodded weakly. She couldn't stand, but she gestured to a light beacon still clipped to her belt. Jack grabbed it and clipped it to his own harness. Together, they plunged into the frigid water. The cold was a living thing. It clawed at Jack's lungs, froze his limbs. He kicked hard, dragging Ceyla with him as they swam toward the far side of the ravine. Behind them, the ice shattered as the creature emerged, part shark, part reptile, with glowing red eyes and jaws built for rending metal. Jack felt a shift in the water and twisted mid-stroke, firing his pulse pistol once. The bolt hit the surface, causing the creature to recoil for a moment. It was enough. They reached the far bank, scrambling up onto the ice. Ceyla collapsed, shivering violently. Jack pulled a thermal blanket from his pack and wrapped it around her. Her skin was ice cold to the touch, her eyes half-lidded. "Stay with me," he muttered, teeth chattering. He activated the plasma heating mat and laid her on it, then stripped off his outer coat and slid under the blanket with her, pressing their bodies close. She didn't speak, only trembled against him. Jack held her tighter, rubbing her arms, whispering her name like a lifeline. Time passed in frozen silence. Slowly, her trembling lessened. Her breathing steadied. Jack felt the warmth begin to return. Her eyes fluttered open. "Hey," he said softly. Ceyla looked up at him, her expression dazed. Her glowing eyes shimmered beneath the blanket. "You stayed," she whispered. "Not going anywhere," he replied. There was a moment's pause. Then, without words, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. It was a short kiss. Hesitant. Cold. But it was real. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "Thank you," she said. He closed his eyes. "You don't have to," he murmured. "Not for that." She shook her head. "Not out of gratitude. Out of truth." They lay there, wrapped in heat and breath and silence, while the world around them melted away. The sun on Virelia was dim, filtered through high clouds and atmospheric frost, but it was enough to reveal the silhouette of the research station in the distance. Jack and Ceyla approached it cautiously. The structure was partially collapsed, one wing sunken into a crevasse, the rest sheathed in frost and silence. Inside, dust-coated abandoned terminals and cracked monitors. The hum of ancient generators still pulsed faintly beneath the floor. Jack's boots echoed on the metal grates as he swept the main corridor. Ceyla followed behind, her eyes scanning every corner, her posture tense. Then a voice cut through the stillness. "Well, I'll be damned. Jack Rowan. I thought you'd be dead by now." Jack turned, weapon raised. A man stepped from the shadows, a broad-shouldered figure with a faded military jacket and cybernetic implants scarring half his face. His voice was calm, but the eyes were cold. "Alec." Jack lowered the weapon slightly. "You're supposed to be dead." "Supposed to be," Alec smirked. "But some of us learn how to adapt. Even if it means switching sides." Ceyla stepped forward, tense. Jack moved instinctively between her and Alec. "She's why you're here," Alec said, eyeing Ceyla. "And she's why they are hunting you. You really know what she's carrying." "A weapons code," Jack said. "Something they want." Alec laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "It's more than that. What she holds is a genetic cipher. A key. To awaken the Archmind. An ancient AI buried beneath the ice. That thing isn't just a weapon, Jack. It's a whole war machine. Self-replicating. Capable of rewriting biospheres." Jack turned to Ceyla, stunned. Her expression was tight, unreadable. "You didn't tell me that. You wouldn't have helped if I had." Jack stepped back. "You're damn right. I've seen what war machines do. I watched them turn cities into dust. My world was already dust." Ceyla snapped. "We lost everything. My people, the survivors. We need something to fight back with. The Archmind was created to protect, before it was locked away. I want to wake it up. Use it against the ones who took everything from us. And if it turns on you? On everyone? What then? Alec watched with mild amusement. Touching. Real moral dilemma stuff. You always were the righteous one, Jack. That's why you buried your past in the snow. Jack ignored him. His voice lowered. Ceyla. If you do this, there's no going back. Once the Archmind wakes up, it won't care about sides. It'll only calculate threats. It'll make decisions none of us can control. Her fists trembled. I can control it. That's what everyone thinks. Silence fell between them. The station creaked in the cold. Ceyla turned away. I have to try. Even if it means leaving you behind. She walked down the corridor, her silhouette swallowed by shadow. Jack didn't follow. Alec clapped slowly. Well, that was dramatic. You gonna let her do it? Jack turned his back. You already did. That's why you're here, right? To help them activate it. I'm here to survive. I just picked the winning side. You should think about doing the same. Jack said nothing. He sat on an old crate, staring at the floor, listening to the fading sound of her footsteps echoing through the steel. The warmth of the previous night felt like a memory already cracking in the cold. The cave was silent except for the slow dripping of melt water. Jack sat near the entrance, his breath misting in the still, frozen air. The snow outside was beginning to fall again, light and whispering. He had been there for hours, staring at the nothingness, wrestling with a weight in his chest. He had watched people die, left comrades behind. But this was different. This was her. Ceyla. His thoughts ran in loops. Maybe she believed in something bigger. Maybe she was right to fight for her people. But the Archmind? That wasn't salvation. That was annihilation wrapped in old promises. A part of him told him to stay. To let it go. She'd made her choice. He had done his part. But then he heard it. Echoing faintly across the COMM band tucked in his collar. A single, broken word. Jack. It was her voice. Hoarse. Desperate. Choked with pain. He stood before he realized he had moved. His body moved like instinct, like an old program reactivated. He grabbed his gear, his weapons, and without a second thought, left the cave behind. The hunter's compound wasn't far, tucked in the belly of a ravine surrounded by high cliffs. He had been there once, years ago, when it was a mining site. Now, it pulsed with alien lights and sentinels. Jack crawled through a maintenance tunnel, now half collapsed, coated in frost and silence. Inside, the compound was alive with foreign tech, smooth walls etched with unfamiliar glyphs, lighting that pulsed like veins. He moved through shadow, placing charges at weak points, the base of a support column, near a fuel conduit, beneath a stack of power cells. Then he saw her. Ceyla was restrained in a chamber of translucent crystal, suspended upright, her eyes closed. Her face was pale, a bruise blooming across her cheekbone. Two alien guards monitored her vitals from a console. Jack didn't wait. 2 clean shots. The guards dropped. He rushed to the pod, hands moving quickly over the alien interface. It responded to touch, unfamiliar but intuitive. The restraints hissed, retracting. She slumped forward. He caught her. Her eyes fluttered open. You came. You called. She managed a small smile. I didn't think you would. Well, I'm full of bad decisions. Footsteps pounded outside. Can you run? He asked. If you carry me? He lifted her onto his back, her arms wrapped weakly around his shoulders. Alarms began to wail. Red lights painted the halls in pulses. He ducked through the path he memorized, guiding her through twisting corridors. When they reached the fuel conduit, he pressed the remote. The charge exploded. Fire and snow collided in a thunderous blast. The support beams groaned, then snapped. The upper floors began to cave. Snow poured through the cracks like an avalanche. They burst through a side exit just as the facility began to collapse. A shockwave rolled behind them, flinging Jack forward. He landed hard, curling his body around Ceyla as they hit the ice. Silence followed. Then a crack. The lake beneath them was breaking. Jack scrambled to his feet, hauling Ceyla up. They ran, slipping on the widening fissures. Beneath the ice, dark water churned. The remains of the compound sank slowly into the depths. At the far edge, the ice held. Jack dropped to his knees, gasping. Ceyla lay beside him, coughing but alive. For a long moment, they said nothing. Just the sound of breath, wind, and the slow creaking of shifting ice. Ceyla turned to him. "Why?" He looked up. His face was tired, but steady. "Because I couldn't live in a world where I let them take you." She reached for his hand. He took it. "Thank you," she whispered. He squeezed her fingers. "You still want to wake it up?" he asked. She was silent. Then she shook her head. "No," she said softly. "Not if it means losing myself. Not if it means losing you." Snow began to fall again, light and quiet. They stayed there at the lake's edge, caught between two collapsing worlds, hers and his. And for the first time, they weren't running from them. They were choosing something new. The sun rose slowly over the icy expanse, casting golden light across the shattered surface of the glacier. For the first time in decades, the sky above Virelia was clear. No storms, no smoke, no warships passing like shadows. Just light. Pale and fragile, but real. Jack stood at the edge of the ridge, gazing out at the sea of melting ice. The final flicker of the archmind had been extinguished. The core, once humming with ancient purpose, had gone still. No pulse. No signal. Just silence. Behind him, Ceyla sat on a crate beside their temporary shelter, a dome cobbled together from scavenged outpost panels and survival modules. She was adjusting the solar intake, but her movements were slower now, deliberate. The lines of light that once danced across her armor were gone. Her eyes no longer glowed. She had given it up. The code was gone. The connection to the archmind severed. Whatever energy had once flowed through her was now memory. And without it, she was something new. Not less. Just different. A soft breeze carried the smell of thawed minerals and exposed earth. Life was beginning to stir under the ice. Jack turned back toward her. "How's the intake?" She smiled faintly. "Working. Barely. Like me." He crossed a small clearing between them and knelt beside her. "You're not broken?" "No," she said. "Just free. And lost." Jack reached into the toolkit and helped her secure the final panel. Their hands touched. Neither moved away. "You don't have to go back," he said after a moment. Ceyla looked up, surprised. "Go back where?" "Wherever you thought you needed to be. Your people. Your mission. That's over. You said it yourself." She looked away, her gaze drifting to the horizon where the ice was receding, revealing patches of dark soil beneath. "Then where would I go?" Jack hesitated, then stood. He pointed behind the ridge. Over that rise, there's a basin. Old geothermal vent system. Mostly stable. I used to scout it when I first came here. It's warm. Fertile. Ceyla rose slowly. You're suggesting we settle. I'm suggesting we stop running. Build something. Not just to survive, but to live. She studied his face. The creases of age. The weariness. But also the resolve. The quiet strength. The man who had come back for her when he didn't have to. She nodded. They spent the next week hauling supplies, repurposing gear, shaping a new kind of life from the remnants of the old. The structure they built wasn't much, a squat shelter of alloy and poly glass, powered by solar and warmed by steam from the vents. But it was theirs. Jack fixed the antenna for a long-range signal, not to call for help, but to listen to know if others were out there, rebuilding too. Ceyla tended a hydroponic crate salvaged from a wrecked science pod. She planted the first seeds in Virelia's soil. The days passed. The sun rose higher. The ice receded. And one morning, they sat outside their shelter on a pair of makeshift chairs, mugs of warm tea in hand. The sky was streaked with clouds lit by a true sunrise. Jack glanced sideways. Ceyla was watching the light dance across the glacier. Her eyes did not glow. But they shone. He reached out. She took his hand. In that moment, they weren't warriors, fugitives, or ghosts of forgotten wars. They were simply two people. Alive. Together. And for the first time, the future was theirs.